This is not history meant for forgetting. This is the survival code of Vietnamese military strategy that the minds of Israel are yearning to decode for the next 30 years. History does not only teach us how to win, it teaches us how to avoid self-destruction. There are empires that collapsed not for a lack of power, but because they believed they were invincible. And there are nations that survive not because they are always stronger, but because they know exactly when to bow. Do you smile because things are going well, or because you have just found a grand path in your moment of deepest despair? We begin with the most dangerous element in any war: arrogance. What brings an empire down is not the enemy, it is the sensation of being untouchable. Episode 21. Open your phone's contact list. How many names are saved just to prove you have connections? How many relationships exist not out of trust, but because you want to feel like you belong to a certain class? We live in an era where arrogance is packaged under a beautiful name, personal branding. But arrogance is still arrogance. When the Mongol army surged into Dai Viet, they brought more than just weapons. They brought a belief far more dangerous. They had painted the world red from Asia to Europe. They had crushed mighty empires. To them, Dai Viet was merely a small stop on the map of conquest. A nation of farmers. A tropical land. Not worth studying in depth. Arrogance is an addiction. It makes you believe that yesterday's success guarantees tomorrow's victory. It makes you think you understand everything, when, in fact, you have stopped observing. When you believe too much in your own greatness, you have broken your own survival compass. The enemy generals were warned about the complex river terrain, about the harsh climate, about the flexible tactics of the Vietnamese. But they refused to listen. Because in their minds, might is right. That was the first strategic blunder. The romance of that era lies in the visual contrast. Brilliant golden armor. Banners fluttering in the wind. Facing off against simple, earth-brown tunics. But you know what? Golden armor is heavy. It makes the wearer believe they are invulnerable. But it also makes them slow and prone to being melted in the fire. The brown cloth is light. It blends into the color of the earth. It draws no attention. But it is flexible. In strategy, humility is not weakness, it is an observational tool. Are you building a life based on ostentation? Or do you have the fortitude to look directly at your own flaws? We often lose not because the opponent is too strong, but because our ego is so large that there is no room left for the truth. Every empire collapses from within before it falls from without. When a collective begins to believe it cannot be wrong, that is precisely when they begin to err the most. And the most uncomfortable question for you today: are you trying to hide your weakness? Or are you lucid enough to turn it into a trap for the enemy? Because the humble always see the danger ahead. The arrogant see only their own reflection. When the real battle begins, the survivor is not the one who believes they are the strongest, it is the one who never stops learning from reality. When the opponent is willing to burn everything down, how much of your power remains? History proves, the larger the illusion, the louder the sound of it shattering. Episode 22. You are lying next to someone. Do you truly feel safe? Or are you trying to maintain a perfect image because you fear that if they saw your true self, they would leave? The enemies of Dai Viet built an image of being undefeated. They used brutality to sow the seeds of terror. They believed that the mere mention of their name would force an opponent to their knees. And that tactic had worked in many places. But they did not expect one thing. The Vietnamese did not choose to kneel. They chose to withdraw. Not a withdrawal in fear, but a calculated retreat. Bon Kong Na Trong, the scorched earth policy, empty garden, empty house. This was not merely a military tactic. It was a strike that shattered an illusion. Imagine marching your army into a royal capital. You expect spoils of war. You expect granaries. You expect hostages. But you find only emptiness. No food. No wealth. No people to impose your power upon. When you desire to seize something, but your opponent is willing to destroy the very thing you want to seize, your power collapses instantly. It is a psychological blow. The romance of the acoustic waves in this episode is the sound of bamboo burning in the fire. The crackling in the night forest. It sounds like loss. But in reality, it is a declaration. You may step onto this land, but you will never possess our soul. The enemy stands in the middle of an empty capital. For the first time, they feel small in the face of silence. Because they cannot fight against a void. They are used to crushing resistance. But they do not know how to handle refusal. It is the same in personal life. You try to hold onto a relationship through imposition, through control, through demands. But if the other person is willing to withdraw from that power game, what do you have left? A family full of people but lacking a soul occurs when each person is tending to their ego more than they're tending to each other. Winning an argument does not make you stronger. Realizing you might be wrong is what makes you mature. Are you trying to seize affection, power, or assets through pressure? Or do you understand that sincerity is the only thing that cannot be stolen? Viet did not try to prove they were stronger than the Empire. They only proved one thing. We are not afraid of losing what can be rebuilt, but we will not lose our soul. And that was the moment the undefeated illusion began to crack. Do you smile because you won an argument? Or because you were brave enough to admit you were wrong? In every empire, the most dangerous moment is not when they are attacked. It is when they believe that no one dares to resist. And history has proven. The larger the illusion, the louder the shatter. Why does the one who has everything crumble so easily before the one who has nothing left to lose? In any system, when trust is not deep enough, a single strong wind is all it takes, and everything collapses. Episode 23. Do you have true friends, or just partners in glory? Think carefully. How many people are by your side when you succeed? And how many will remain if you have nothing left tomorrow? In the machinery of the invader, the relationship between generals was not built on brotherhood. It was built on merit. Who seized more land? Who killed more troops? Whose name was spoken more by the emperor? Reputation was the currency of value. And when reputation becomes the primary driver, cooperation begins to rot. When things go well, they call it talent. When difficulties arise, they look for someone to blame. The empire did not collapse because the Vietnamese were too numerous. It collapsed because the internal belief system had fractured. Every general wanted to be the fastest, the strongest, the most glorious. No one wanted to step back to listen to a warning. No one wanted to admit they could be wrong. And when they all charged forward for the sake of their egos, they led one another into the abyss. This is the cruel romance of solitude upon a fake peak. The arrogant often die in loneliness. Because around them, there are only two types of people. The flatterers. And those waiting for them to trip. Viet was different. Tuong si mo long fu tu, generals and soldiers with the heart of father and son. That was not a slogan. It was a belief structure. When a general went to battle, behind him was not just a command. It was a bond like blood. When a soldier fell, it was not just a tactical loss, it was a family loss. This connective glue cannot be bought with gold. It cannot be manufactured through fear. It is only formed when the ego is placed below the collective interest. Modern society teaches you to be independent, to be autonomous, to stand alone. But excessive independence easily slides into isolation. You have to brace yourself. You have to prove yourself. You have to maintain your position at all costs. And in that effort, you gradually lose the people who were truly willing to stand by you when you fail. An uncomfortable question for you. Do you smile because you are in a higher position than others? Or because you have people willing to stand with you even when you hit rock bottom? 30 years from now, people will not remember how wealthy you were. They will only remember how you handled your own arrogance. Because in any system, when trust is not deep enough, a single strong wind is all it takes, and everything collapses. And that is why the one who has everything is often the most fragile before the one who has nothing left to lose. The person with nothing to lose does not fight for glory. They fight for survival. But the one who has everything often fights merely to protect their image. And an image is more fragile than you think. When the power that once sat upon a flower-adorned palanquin must hide inside a bronze tube to survive. History does not only record victories. It records the posture of a human being in the moment of their defeat. Episode 24. Have you ever seen someone build a magnificent exterior, only to cover a trembling soul? That is the state of a system when the belief in its own superiority collapses. Look at Todhon, a prince, a general of the most powerful empire of that era. When he first marched into Viet, he sat upon a flower-adorned palanquin, commanding tens of thousands, crying out words of conquest. That image was the symbol of absolute power. But history records a different moment. In the chaos of the retreat, he had to crawl into a bronze tube to shield himself from the poisoned arrows of common fishermen and peasant soldiers. From the palanquin to the bronze tube. From the empire to a narrow crevice. This is the classic antithesis of the price of arrogance. That bronze tube was not just a physical shield. It was a symbol. A symbol of the shrinking of an ego that once wanted to swallow the world. Now only praying for a tiny space to exist. The sound of metal clashing against mountain rocks during the flight. That is the sound of a sovereign power shattering. The romance here is satirical yet agonizing. Because no one imagined a prince would end in such a posture. But power that is not protected by the heart of the people is always more fragile than its outward appearance. Are you building a life based on a glamorous facade? A title? A status? An invincible image? If the storm arrives tomorrow, will you stand tall amidst the wind? Or will you have to find a bronze tube to hide in? A righteous system does not need a bronze tube to protect its leader. It is protected by the trust of those around them. When the people trust, the leader needs no shield. When the people do not trust, no armor is thick enough. Do you smile because you have status? Or because you are free enough not to have to flee from the truth? Togan did not just lose a battle. He lost in the final image of himself. And that is what makes the price of arrogance the most expensive of all. Because when power collapses, what remains is not gold or silver. It is the memory of how you conducted yourself when everything abandoned you. When all doors close, do you wait? Or do you open a new horizon for yourself? History's ultimate romance does not lie in the clashing of swords. It lies in the sound of the wind blowing across post-war fields, where blood has soaked into the earth, and green sprouts begin to rise. Episode 25. When all doors close, only then does a human truly know who they are. The one who has everything often collapses the fastest, for they are used to walking through doors already held open. The one with nothing left to lose is far more dangerous, for they no longer fear what might be taken away. History does not only record the victories of Viet, it records the moment an empire realizes that power cannot open every door. There are doors that open only through the heart of the people. There are walls that crumble only when the ego crumbles first. The invaders of old smiled as they set out. They believed in a glory pre-programmed in their minds. That might is victory. Big is right, and many is overwhelming. But upon their return, that smile was no longer a belief. It was a scar. That is the legacy of false happiness. Happiness built on comparison. Happiness fed by the gaze of admiration. Happiness that exists only while at the peak. But when the peak vanishes, if no one stands beside you, you will realize you have built a castle on sand. Viet did not win by being more numerous. They did not win by being stronger. They won because when all doors were closed, they did not sit and wait. They did not wait for pity. They did not beg for recognition. They created a horizon out of their own hardship. A harsh environment is not a curse. It is a teacher. The mountains and forests teach patience. The rivers teach flexibility. War teaches solidarity. And the defeat of the arrogant teaches the lesson of human limits. 30 years from now, the world may be full of algorithms predicting emotions. But no algorithm will ever simulate the moment a human transcends their own arrogance. Because that is not data. It is a choice. When all doors close in your life, When your career stalls. When friends drift away. When the spotlight fades. Will you sit and wait for another door to open? Or are you brave enough to tear down a wall that has limited you for so many years? Not tearing it down in anger, but tearing it down because you understand you no longer need the old frame. The final legacy is not glory. It is not power. It is the ability to stand back up without the need to boast. The final question I leave for you, not for you to answer today. Do you smile because you have just fulfilled a command from society? Or because you have truly conquered the arrogance within your own soul? The waves of history continue to flow. Doors may close. Walls may be high. But the horizon does not belong to those who wait. It belongs to the one who dares to step out of their own shadow. And in that moment, your smile will no longer be a false happiness. It will be the serenity of a person who has nothing left to hide. The video closes there. No cheering. Only the sound of the wind,